I said move, you fool! You're blocking the view! The porcelain cup rattled as Amira froze, tea steaming between her trembling hands, and a room full of silent cowards. Laughter, soft, sharp, cut through the air like a blade. Her first day, and she was already the target. Gavin Cross leaned back, smug and certain, his voice dripping with the kind of confidence that comes from never being challenged. "Careful," he said. "Wouldn't want to spill and make a mess." A few executives chuckled, afraid not to, but Amira didn't shrink. She steadied the tray, her tone calm. "Sometimes," she said, "it takes a spill to see who people really are." The laughter died. What no one knew, not yet, was that this intern wasn't here to serve coffee. She was here to take the temperature of the room, and before the day ended, the same man who mocked her would be the one begging to be heard. Because some spills don't stain clothes, they expose character. This is Hidden Black Echoes, where the stories of struggles are told, the rise and the voice of those the world tried to silence. If you believe true strength doesn't wear a title, hit like and subscribe, because in the next few minutes you'll see how one woman's quiet grace turned humiliation into revelation, and proved that sometimes the real power in the room belongs to the one they underestimate. "I said move! You're blocking the view!" Amira didn't respond. She steadied the tray in her hands and approached with the quiet grace of someone who refused to bend to noise. "Coffee for you, sir?" she asked, her tone calm, respectful. Gavin scoffed. "Coffee?" "Number." "Tea. English breakfast, if you can manage that. Hot, not lukewarm like last time." There had been no last time. It was her first day. But Amira only nodded. "Yes, sir." She turned to pour. Behind her, laughter flickered, low, biting, quick to fade. The conference table gleamed like a mirror, reflecting her image. The dark-skinned woman in a modest cream blouse, her hair neatly pinned, her posture perfect. She didn't shrink, though every eye was heavy with judgment. As she reached Gavin's side, he said, "Tell me, sweetheart, do they still hire interns from those diversity programs? Or did you just get lucky?" Someone at the end of the table coughed to hide a laugh. Amira met his gaze briefly, not defiant, just steady. "I'm here to learn," she said, "and to serve where needed." "Serve," he repeated, leaning forward. "Good word choice." He lifted his cup slightly, tilting it toward her. "Here, a little more." She poured, slow and precise. Then, as she began to pull back, he jerked his hand, accidentally. The tea splashed over her wrist, spilling down the front of her blouse. A collective gasp broke out. Then silence. Amira didn't flinch. Steam rose between them. The liquid burned, but her face didn't move. "Oh," Gavin said, fake surprise twisting his grin. "Guess someone needs practice with balance." A few nervous laughs followed. No one spoke up. Not one. Amira blinked once, steady. She set the teapot down, picked up a napkin, and dabbed gently at her sleeve. "It's fine, sir," she said softly. "Sometimes it takes heat to see who people really are." Her tone was polite, but her words lingered in the air like a quiet echo that refused to leave. For a moment, Gavin's smirk faltered. He waved a hand dismissively. "Clean that up and head to HR. You shouldn't be in this room during executive sessions." Amira inclined her head slightly. "Understood." She turned and walked out. No rush, no visible anger, just a quiet, deliberate calm that unsettled everyone who watched her go. Gavin leaned back in his chair again. "See? Some people just don't fit the room," he said, sipping his tea as though nothing had happened. But the silence that followed wasn't agreement. It was discomfort. The kind that doesn't fade easily. Through the glass walls, they could still see her, standing in the hallway, speaking softly to an assistant, her soaked sleeve dark against her blouse. She smiled, actually smiled, as she thanked the woman for handing her a towel. "She's composed," one of the junior execs murmured. "Composed?" Gavin snorted. "She's lucky. You'll see. By next week she'll be gone." No one corrected him. But every person in that room felt something shift. Not in Amira, but in themselves. Later that morning, as the meeting continued, the HR director entered briefly, whispering something to the assistant. The words corporate observer and evaluation visit passed quietly between them. Gavin didn't notice. He was too busy telling a story about how young people these days needed discipline, about how respect had become optional. Out in the hallway, Amira walked past a line of desks, the same calm expression on her face. A few employees looked up nervously, others looked away. One woman whispered, "You should report him." Amira smiled faintly. "No need," she said. "Some people write their own reports without realizing it." The woman frowned, unsure what she meant. Amira paused by a glass panel overlooking the boardroom. Through it, she could still see Gavin gesturing, loud and arrogant. She didn't stare long, just enough to memorize the scene. Then she whispered quietly, almost to herself, "Let's see who's really being evaluated today." And with that, she walked down the hall, her footsteps measured, her sleeve still damp, her dignity untouched. Behind her, the laughter in the boardroom returned. Louder now, desperate, hollow. But the echo of her calm had already taken root. By the time the day was over, every person who saw that moment would remember it. Not the spill, not the stain, but the silence that followed her words. The kind of silence that always comes right before the truth reveals itself. The office buzzed with keyboards, phones, and low conversations, but beneath it all ran one shared whisper. Everyone had seen what happened that morning. Gavin Cross, the department head known for his temper, had humiliated the new intern in front of the board. And she hadn't flinched. Now, as daylight slid across the glass walls, people couldn't stop talking. "She didn't even react," murmured an analyst. "If that were me, I'd have quit," said another. Someone else whispered, "Or maybe she's got a plan." A plan? The word lingered. Because Amira Cole didn't move like an intern. Her posture was calm, her steps deliberate. Even the way she arranged papers felt intentional. Every look, every silence, measured. At her desk by the window, she typed notes quietly. Occasionally, she glanced toward the boardroom. Blinds half drawn, the space where she'd been humiliated. Her fingers paused when a message flashed across her tablet. "They've noticed. Keep observing. The real session begins at 3. She smiled faintly, deleted it, and went back to work. Gavin's laughter carried from down the hall. His voice had that smug confidence that came from years of getting away with arrogance. He strolled past, talking loudly to a junior executive. When his eyes met Amira's, his smirk sharpened. "Well, look who's still here," he said. "Did HR forget to escort you out?" Amira looked up calmly. "I was told to stay for the evaluation this afternoon." "Evaluation?" he scoffed. "Please, that's for management, not interns." She smiled slightly. "I know." Something in her composure unsettled him. He chuckled dryly and walked off, muttering, "Unbelievable." Nearby employees exchanged wary glances. One leaned over. "Amira, you should be careful. Gavin's not someone you want as an enemy." She glanced toward his office. "I'm not his enemy," she said softly. "Just his mirror." The woman frowned, unsure what that meant. By 2:30, tension had settled thick across the floor. A sudden ding announced a new internal memo. "Notice: Corporate Governance Evaluation, Surprise Visit, 3 p.m. Please ensure all departments demonstrate professional conduct." The chatter died. People straightened their desks. Gavin rolled his eyes. "Fantastic. Another audit pretending to care about ethics." He turned to his assistant. "Get me my PR talking points, the ones that make me sound humble." Meanwhile, Amira closed her tablet, smoothed her blouse, still faintly stained from the morning, and stood. Her calm drew attention. Colleagues whispered again. "Is she part of the evaluation team?" "No, she's just an intern." "Then why does she look like she's running it?" At exactly 3 p.m., the elevator doors opened. 3 corporate executives stepped out, led by a woman in a charcoal gray suit with sharp glasses. Her badge read, "Evelyn Hart, Chief of Corporate Ethics." The air shifted. Everyone stood taller. Gavin put on his best smile. "Miss Hart." What a surprise. Didn't expect a visit this quarter. Evelyn's expression didn't change. "We like unannounced reviews, Mr. Cross. Keeps people honest." Then, from behind her, Amira stepped out. Only now, her ID tag wasn't marked Intern. It read, "Amira Cole, Executive Observer, Corporate Oversight Division." The room froze. Every whisper stopped. Gavin blinked, confused. What is this?" Evelyn turned smoothly. "Mr. Cross, Ms. Cole has been observing workplace culture under your supervision for the past week." "My supervision?" he repeated weakly. "That's correct." Evelyn nodded to Amira. "She'll lead the behavioral review." Amira met his gaze, calm, steady, professional. The same composure that had made his cruelty look small that morning now commanded the room. She opened her file. "Mr. Cross," she said evenly, "how do you define respect in leadership?" The color drained from his face. "Excuse me?" "Respect," she repeated, "in your own words." "I'd like to record your answer." For the first time that day, Gavin Cross, the man who loved to talk, had nothing to say. Outside the glass walls, employees stared in silent awe. The intern he mocked was now the woman holding his career in her hand. And Amira didn't need to raise her voice. Her silence did it for her. If this moment interests you, take a second to like this video and subscribe for more stories where hearts change faster than fortunes ever could. Your support helps us keep sharing voices that deserve to be heard. The boardroom was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Sunlight poured through the glass wall, throwing sharp rectangles of light across the polished table. And right in the middle sat Gavin Cross, gripping his pen like a weapon. Across from him, Amira Cole sat poised, tablet open, her tone steady as she began the session. "Mr. Cross," she said, "this is a behavioral compliance review, not a disciplinary hearing. You'll simply answer questions about leadership conduct." Gavin forced a grin. "Of course. I've led teams for years. My record speaks for itself." Evelyn Hart, the ethics chief, nodded without expression. "That's precisely why we're here." to ensure your record aligns with company values." A low murmur rippled among the junior staff, observing from outside the glass wall. No one dared move closer, but every eye was fixed on the man who'd poured tea on an intern that morning. Amira tapped her screen. "To begin," she said, "we'll reference an incident that occurred at approximately 9:06 a.m. in this same room." Gavin's jaw twitched. "That's unnecessary. It was a misunderstanding." She looked up. "Is that your official statement?" He hesitated. "Look, I didn't know who you were. I mean—" He stopped himself, realizing the slip. "I didn't mean any disrespect." "Yet you poured hot liquid onto a subordinate," Amira said evenly, "and followed it with verbal humiliation witnessed by multiple employees." His smile faltered. "It wasn't intentional." Evelyn spoke then, her voice calm but firm. "We have 3 eyewitness reports, a security video, and 2 audio recordings." The words landed like stones. Gavin's hand tightened around his pen. Outside, a quiet gasp. No one had known security footage existed. But of course it did. The company had cameras in every meeting space. Amira turned the screen toward the room. A muted video began playing, a wide-angle shot of the morning meeting. Gavin's hand knocking the cup, the tea splashing, the smirk on his face, the laughter that followed. And then Amira, calm, silent, humiliated but unbroken. When the clip ended, she set the tablet down gently. The silence that followed was heavier than any outburst. Gavin leaned back, his voice rough now. "I made a mistake, all right? But I treat my staff well. Ask anyone." "Would you like us to?" Evelyn asked. Before he could answer, a soft voice spoke from the doorway. "I'd like to." All heads turned. It was Nora, the receptionist, the one who'd worked quietly for years without ever being noticed. Her hands trembled slightly as she stepped in. "I've worked under Mr. Cross for 4 years. I've seen people cry at their desks. He yells, he throws things. I thought that was just how it had to be." Gavin's face turned crimson. "Nora, you're out of line." "No," Amira interrupted quietly. "She's finally in line." Nora blinked, then straightened. "He made me pour coffee on a file once, to teach a lesson. I remember thinking, someone should teach him one instead." A ripple went through the staff outside. Evelyn turned to Amira. "This will go on record." Amira nodded, her gaze still steady on Gavin. "Mr. Cross, do you believe your behavior reflects the company's code of ethics?" He swallowed hard. "I said it was a mistake." "More than one mistake," Evelyn corrected, scrolling through her file. "There are prior complaints. 2 formal, 3 informal, all closed due to insufficient evidence." Gavin stood abruptly. "I built this department from scratch. You wouldn't have half your revenue without me." Amira didn't flinch. "Then you should have built a culture worth keeping." The words hit like a hammer. He looked around for support, but no one met his eyes. The staff who once nodded to him now looked away. Even his assistant stood frozen, her face pale. Evelyn closed the folder. "Mr. Cross, you are hereby suspended pending a full investigation. HR will escort you from the premises." He slammed his hand on the table. "This is insane! You think she—" He pointed at Amira, shaking with rage. "You think she understands what I do here? She's just some—" Evelyn's voice sliced through the air. "Enough." But Amira raised a hand gently. "It's all right." She stood, her composure unbroken, her presence commanding without force. "Mr. Cross," she said quietly, "you're right about one thing. I don't understand how you do what you do, because I was raised to lead differently. He scoffed, desperate. By who? HR question mark. A faint smile touched her lips. By the woman who owns this company. The room fell silent. Evelyn turned to her, stunned. Miss Cole. Amira nodded. Yes. Amira Cole, daughter of Marjorie Cole, founder and CEO. The silence turned electric. Every face froze. Even Gavin, who'd been mid-outburst, stopped breathing for a moment. Amira continued, calm but cutting. I was asked to evaluate the management culture quietly, to see how leaders treat those they believe have no power. She took a breath, her tone steady. Now I've seen enough. The weight of her words filled the room. Gavin slumped back in his chair, eyes blank, pride collapsing faster than his career. Outside, the employees watched through the glass, a man's downfall unfolding not through shouting, but through quiet truth. Amira gathered her tablet, gave a small nod to Evelyn, and turned toward the door. The so-called intern walked out first. The man who mocked her didn't follow. The story spread faster than wildfire. By the afternoon, headlines blared across every local news site, social media, and group chat. Intern exposes racist boss, ends career in minutes. Videos of the confrontation, captured by an observant colleague, circulated, showing the tea spill, the stunned silence, and Amira's calm revelation. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications piling up. Messages of support from friends, family, and strangers poured in. You showed what real courage looks like, one read. Another. That's how you turn power into accountability. Meanwhile, back at the office, the former boss was already a ghost. His desk empty, his office cleared, his emails redirected. HR had initiated a full investigation. Legal teams drafted statements. The company released a brief but pointed press release. An internal investigation confirmed a violation of workplace conduct. Appropriate action has been taken. The company remains committed to a safe and respectful environment for all employees. Amira watched it all unfold from her apartment, her coffee untouched on the counter. She could feel the weight lifting, not just from her shoulders, but from every marginalized voice who had ever been silenced, underestimated, or humiliated. Then came the interviews. Local news vans appeared outside her building, cameras rolling, microphones extended. Amira, ever composed, agreed to a statement. I didn't do this for attention, she said, voice steady but warm. I did this because no one should be made to feel less than they are. We have the right to demand respect and accountability in every space we enter. That includes offices, schools, and public life. Change begins with small acts of courage, but it only works when we speak the truth. Her words echoed online, in the press, and across boardrooms. Suddenly, she wasn't just the intern who endured a humiliating act. She was the symbol of strength, integrity, and quiet resistance. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #RespectAmira, #AccountabilityMatters, and #NoMoreTeaSpills trended nationwide. People shared stories of their own experiences, moments when they had been overlooked, demeaned, or discriminated against. And in each story, Amira's example became a thread of hope, proof that injustice could be challenged and corrected. Meanwhile, corporate networks buzzed nervously. Executives reviewed training programs, diversity initiatives, and policies. Staff meetings were called. The former boss's swift termination became a case study in leadership seminars, a cautionary tale of arrogance, prejudice, and the cost of underestimating others. Amira returned to work the next morning, not to the same office, but to a new team, a supportive manager, and a culture that prioritized respect over fear. Her co-workers greeted her with smiles, nods, and quiet congratulations. No longer a shadow in the corner, she carried herself differently, upright and confident. The air around her felt lighter, charged with the certainty that the small acts of courage had rippled into real change. Evenings, she scrolled through the countless messages of gratitude and solidarity. People she'd never met thanked her for speaking up, for showing that identity, dignity, and competence could never be dismissed. Somewhere deep inside, she realized the power of one moment, how it could reshape a company, a community, even a culture. And though the news cycle would move on, she knew this: the impact of truth, courage, and accountability didn't fade. It lingered, quietly transforming spaces, demanding better from everyone. Amira leaned back in her chair, breathing slowly, the hum of her apartment settling around her. The storm had passed. The work wasn't finished. Change never is. But she had set the precedent. She had turned humiliation into empowerment, prejudice into exposure, and fear into action. Outside, the city lights flickered against the evening sky. Inside, one small apartment held the calm, steadfast knowledge that sometimes courage doesn't roar. It simply shows up, poised and unshakable, and the world listens. If stories like this remind you that dignity has nothing to do with titles, uniforms, or class, hit like and subscribe, so you never miss the next story where quiet strength turns judgment into regret and respect finds its way home.